Hello.
Okay.
She's here for the second piece.
Okay.
So that's what she's. And let me just tell Josh real quick.
Ordinance for my notes purposes.
Okay. Fine. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name's Jason Provins. This is the first meeting of the Law, Ordinance, Environment, and Public Safety Committee. This is a very informal type of setting, so we don't have to follow Robert's rules. Really, we're here to do some work. So the two main topics or agenda items that we have for tonight are recovery housing, and some people know it as sober living. And then the other one is community trust and safety. So we'll go ahead and dive into recovery housing first. Is there anyone that's here to speak on that tonight or showed up just for the conversation?
We're all here.
All here? Okay. Okay, excellent. I'll defer to my committee members to speak first. Does anybody want to open up the discussion on recovery housing?
Do you want to give an update, Sam, about where you left off? I also spoke with Mr. Reeves on the way up, and I don't have an update since yesterday.
I do not have an update since yesterday either. So
Okay.
the last information that we had, Susan spoke with Ralph on the phone yesterday. And as far as, so there's kind of two separate situations going on. There's the enforcement of the existing legislation, which we are kind of, that's what Ralph is overseeing. And then there is pursuing a recovery housing specific legislation piece in order to not find ourselves back in this same situation in a few months, or if this should happen again. So in terms of the enforcement of the existing legislation, the update, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, but the update that she was given yesterday was that the building department was denied access to the property to be able to check on how many people were there, which you are legally allowed to deny them access, and they don't have to let you in, and they did not. So the building department recruited the fire department to come do an inspection. You are not allowed to deny the fire department access when they are doing an inspection. And as far as we know, yesterday was supposed to be the day that the fire department was going to inspect. If upon inspection they discover that they are still in violation, then I believe it heads to the law department, Keith. Is that correct? Okay. And so then that process would be it goes to court. Okay. And you didn't hear an update on that yesterday? Okay, so yesterday is the last update that we've got on that. And then the second kind of aside piece from that is pursuing, or at least looking into, the possibility of legislation specific to recovery housing so that we don't continue to run into this issue. Obviously, we hit a wall initially because there are concerns about addiction being a protected disability. We don't want to do anything that could be housing discrimination. So I found a very limited amount as far as I could find on the internet. And obviously I'm not a researcher, but as far as I could find on Google, I only found 3 cities that have existing legislation surrounding them. And I sent those over to everybody to see. They're all similar in terms of their approach. One of them was sued for housing discrimination by kind of their equivalent to Izzy's House, who's spurned the city to have that on in the first place. The city did win that lawsuit, but it's important to note that lawsuit did happen. I imagine it was not, an easy process or particularly cost effective. But the city did ultimately win, and it was determined that it was not housing discrimination. So that's kind of important info. I don't know if y'all had time to review those, what your thoughts on them were.
Yes, reviewed. I guess my question, because I feel like I'm coming into the middle of a movie.
Sure.
Is Ohio has passed a registration process, and so that's not enough for us to take action. Is that kind of what the issue is at?
So Izzy's House is apparently in the process of getting registration, and as far as the state is concerned, that is enough. We are not allowed to say no to them because they have begun the process
have we petitioned the Ohio Recovery Housing Board to say, hey, we've had issues?
Not to my knowledge.
There has
what
been
that
a formal
process would be like.
complaint against
Yeah.
the Izzy's house in September of 25.
Okay.
That is listed
On their website.
in the registry.
And I want to say there's a complaint against both addresses. I feel like when we looked it up, there was one tied to each address.
It actually appears to me that one of them has sort of disappeared from the internet. I also just want to add that I have stayed in contact with the Hamilton County Drug Task Force because there was a concern about an increase of these properties. And from their perspective, there's not. Commander Davenport. My last email with him, I believe, was last Thursday. And he is familiar with not only Norwood, but our Norwood officers. They have a really good relationship, which is helpful. What I still have a question about is the two addresses that they are having as highlighted, if those overlap with the sober living, and that's what I do not know.
Okay. Have we of council received any sort of like log of issues that kind of shows a history of bad behavior with these houses in the past?
So we've spoken to a lot of residents nearby and have certainly got documentation of all of those complaints. In terms of the sort of formal complaints to the city, Chief Sumner sent over like the list of medical calls that they've done there. They have not given us, as far as I know, like an exhaustive list of every call that they have received about the house, but in terms of the times that they've actually had to send someone out in response, we do have that information.
Okay. And have we forwarded that on to the official organization that registers these types of properties?
We have not been in contact with the Ohio Behavioral Health.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's an issue that we need to, or that we could put some kind of structure to, because I don't think council is the current path that people should be complaining to. I mean, we're I think more than welcome to receive complaints, but the official complaints, I guess they go through the building department, the fire department, or the police department. But I do think we could put some structure around having a centralized list so that we can start to calculate these rather than having the left and right hand not know what's going on. Because I do think the nuisance policy is one way to address problems that's already on the books, that's already in place. I just don't think we have structure around it.
I would say that the challenge with the structure around the nuisance ordinance when we were working on it was that Norwood doesn't have an infrastructure such to make it really user-friendly.
Right.
Meaning that the police department has their records, the fire department has theirs, the building department has theirs. And so it's not like you put it in an address and it flags. So I agree with you. I think the chronic nuisance ordinance or reporting all the nuisance behaviors are important to capture. But you're right, at this time, the city doesn't have a way to collect all of those. It's retroactive. Once we know there's a problem with an address, then we can go and gather that information, but it's not, let's pull up an address and you see the list of.
And I think a concern that we ran into with pursuing it via the nuisance ordinance was complaints don't count towards the nuisance ordinance. It's only when a department has to take action against the complaints that it counts as a tick mark towards their tally, towards the total. So if there's been 50 complaints, but they only went out to the property and issued a citation twice, then that only counts for 2. And so that was a kind of a barrier that we came up against in terms of pursuing it from that direction. And I guess I just want to stress that like I'm equally interested in obviously addressing what's going on with Izzy's house right now and resolving that issue, but also setting us up so we are not right back here the next time a new sober living home opens. You know what I mean?
Well,
I want to ensure that we've got some sort of pathways around this issue.
Should have the house down by 17 he lives 1766, and that house down the corner is not, they can say it's his house, they can call it sober living, recovery, whatever. They don't do nothing for these guys.
This is the one on Williams, correct, sir?
It's, they come and do whatever they want.
That is what's sober living.
Yeah, forget it, stop that. What am I gonna call this? A group home, sober living? I mean, how can people just come in and do that? I know back in the day, you couldn't do that in Norwood. I mean, you couldn't build a deck and put the decking down unless they came and looked. Now, I wouldn't get a permit for nothing in Norwood. They don't enforce it. I mean, this is insane that this is even happening and we're having this conversation. And it's over and over and over, nothing's getting done.
I hear you. And Sam, it sounds like we've tried to go down the nuisance route. The state of Ohio saw this problem and actually put in a regulatory contact for these types of homes. And it sounds like we haven't tried that avenue yet. It's Ohio MHAS, and it sounds like, to Jeff's point, that we may want to put some structure around it and see what we can do on that route, because all the research that I did is there should be someone we can call, and if they're not registered through this program, they're technically operating illegally. And I'm not sure, Keith, if you're read up on that, because it's a fairly new piece of legislation from the state of Ohio. But these recovery homes should be registered through Ohio MHAS. And if they're not,
It's through the state and not through the county.
right, it's through the state.
It's through the state, and they're in process. And from my understanding from my call with Ohio and my conversation with the Izzy's House Management back in the fall, that because the issue on the registrations, the backlog, that, and this is an Ohio State thing, not a Norwood thing, but because they're so backlogged in registrations, that that they are considering everyone registered while they're in the process. That's what I was told. I'm not saying I agree with it or that it's 100% accurate, but that's what I was told.
How many are registered in the city of Norwood?
2.
Only 2.
Yes, ma'am.
And we all know there's way more than that.
So do you think that we, as neighbors, we need to flush out all the ones that nobody's reporting?
Well, if there are nuisance behaviors, absolutely. The nuisance behavior should be, whether it's a group home or
And
college
how many
housing.
are on record?
Excuse me?
How many properties in the city of Norwood are considered nuisance properties right now
That's a great question for the building department. I don't know what that is.
that you may suspect are sober living houses?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I feel like that we need to.
Council's purview is not necessarily to carry out the law, so we wouldn't be privy to that unless someone brought it to your attention, like you all have. So what we're doing tonight is really considering what the law should be for our city and what sort of action our administration should take to ensure that we're following the law. So I know it's frustrating. I know it's difficult. The more information you can provide us, so it sounds like Sam has some good documentation, the better we can understand the problem and then also inform those that enforce the law. I think though for tonight, what we're trying to decide is, do we need to build some structure around the reporting mechanism, or should we consider an ordinance for Norwood? And Sam, I hear you. Sounds like you're kind of leaning towards the ordinance side.
I think both are appropriate. I think in this situation, dealing with the issues that we're facing with existing recovery housing, I think there has to be a pathway to address those and to ensure that the code is being enforced in those. And I want to ensure that we don't just leave it wide open for us to end up right back here and have to go through this entire lengthy process again. And to be totally clear, I've said this in other meetings, but I want to make sure everybody's on the same page about it. I don't have any interest in not allowing recovery housing in Norwood. I just want to ensure that there's the same oversight or similar oversight that we ask of group homes, that we have some sort of idea of where they're located. As it stands, there's not any kind of requirement for them to have a fire inspection. to make sure that the building is safe for everyone to live in. And so I just, I think it's probably a wise idea to do both. I think if there is a legal and enforceable, viable route that we can take for legislation surrounding recovery housing in the future, we absolutely should pursue that. And we need to streamline the process of dealing with the nuisances surrounding the existing ones. Just a small ask, no huge undertaking, no.
I mean, I think there should be a number, a limit. I mean, not just, you're gonna have people coming in. We've been here our whole life, so I don't want to. Seeing that, grandkids running around playing, I don't care.
From
None of you guys do that. Not around your house.
From what I've found out, none of the existing legislation caps the number that they are allowed to have. I think that is where we run into the potential of housing discrimination, because that is a protected class of individual. What they have done is put limits on the distance, that they must be a certain distance apart from each other. So like the closest one I can find is Bellevue, Kentucky. Theirs, I want to say, is like 600. One of them's 1,000 feet and one of them's like 650 feet. I don't know where that number comes from. Their average lot size, I imagine, or something like that. But none of them had anything about where our group home legislation says we can only have one per, doesn't even say ward, per district or something, and a maximum of 6 in the city. None of the sober living or recovery housing seem to have that. I think that's because that would really toe the line of housing discrimination.
Can I ask a question? Why are group homes, they're a protected class too. So why is this
I don't know why
different?
those are different.
I don't understand.
What's different is a group home is the reason it's called out in our code is that a group home traditionally is more than, the idea is there's more than 4 people, more than 4 individuals that live in that house. And so you can go up to 6 in a single family house, that's fine. And under the state code, that particular type of facility, which involves, it's people, there's a couple of kids with mental disabilities, or it's adults that are receiving personal care services, which means we're feeding them, we're making sure that they're bathed, we're making sure that they're getting to whatever appointments. It's actually physically taking, like, they need caretakers. And so the state, our Ohio code says that use is permitted as of right in any residential district, period, anywhere in the state.
Group homes.
Except you can limit the number. And so that's where our limit on that comes in, is you can't have more than 1 in any particular district. Other than that, they're just, it's all considered residential property, and so it's the 4-person unrelated limit that applies to all of it. We don't have any other classifications, and that's the only one reason that's in there is for group homes, to say that we can limit the number, limit the concentration.
Okay.
Are we able to do that with
So-
living?
What's the difference if you're considering them disabled?
Let's make it a.
If a sober living resident is disabled, what's different?
So sober living homes don't provide personal care services.
Under state, this is something that comes from the state code, and it's specific. The state code says that whatever now it's residential facilities. They changed the nomenclature, but it's the same thing. They receive personal care services, and there's a couple others, but it's a very limited thing, and that's the only one under the state code that's called out as that's allowed as of right, and having more than whatever the number of people in there is allowed. That's just, it's called out in state code, and so it's called out in our code. We don't have any other, there's nothing else that Norwood's code regulates as far as sober living or assisted living or any of the rest of it, beyond any just the residential requirements.
So we are allowed to limit how many we have of group homes because the state has given us permission to limit how many we have.
That's the one that they specifically mention. And so I don't think there's, as far as the discrimination claims, I don't think there's any problem with setting up some kind of registration thing. You got to tell us this is what you're doing, or limiting the concentration, whether it's per district or it's per 650 feet or whatever it is, and that's fine. It's and the other thing is, whatever, if somebody comes in and says, no, I think this is too restrictive, then all they have to do is say, I would like a reasonable accommodation. Can you make an exception for us? And that's something that's easy. And that's mostly what the Kentucky code you have. That's pretty much what that is. That's primarily just their process for asking for a reasonable accommodation. When Izzy's we had in here, they didn't. They didn't ask for anything. They just said, oh, this is what we're entitled to do. And they've never submitted all the stuff they said they were going to send us. They haven't done. And so we could, I don't think there's really a problem with coming up with some kind of registration. You need to let us know this, and perhaps an inspection that we need to know, but from my perspective, the law department's perspective is what are the rules we want to put in place? And once we know that, then we can do a little more research to figure out, well, this may be going a little too far.
So they didn't submit any of the documents that they were asked to submit to come in compliance.
There wasn't even compliance. They were just said, oh yeah, we'll send, do you have a registration? Are you licensed with anybody? Do you have this kind of thing for me? Do you have, okay, what is your corporate form and who actually owns it? And during the hearing, the owner, oh yeah, we'll send that to you.
We'll bring that tomorrow,
Nothing.
So they were given until January 16th for the building department to leave because they did not come in compliance. They didn't submit the documents. There's more than 4 people in a single family home.
It wouldn't matter what they submitted, they're still not allowed to have more than 4 people in the city.
But they're still there with more than 4 people.
And then at this
So
point-
we're in this big gray area now where we have laws or ordinances on the board that they shouldn't be there. So now what?
Well, the other side is the one place where we will get in trouble. You could actually get in trouble. It's like, well, I can rent a house and I can have 3 roommates. But if Norwood says, oh, yes, you can, but if you're receiving any kind of treatment, you're in any kind of program, then no, you can't. That's where you run into trouble.
That's where the
Because,
discrimination.
why can't I have, if I wanted to, if I just got out of rehab and I wanted to rent an apartment and 3 of my friends get a rehab too and we move into a place, that's, how do we say no to that? This, I think, might be a little different because they're running as a business, nonprofit, but they are getting money from somebody.
They're for profit, right?
So, but regardless, but there's some room, some more room to kind of legislate in that area, because we're not saying that people can't. We're saying, hey, if you're going to run this kind of business here, then you might be more. And the alternative is to classify them as a boarding house, but that's a whole nother set of regulations.
But right now, do we
Then
know?
they're subject to the ADA, and they have to get bans, like all the rest of that stuff.
So now there's question, is it a sober living or is it a reentry house?
I
Because
don't know what the difference is.
someone posted on Facebook from that address that they're, so what, are they sober living? What are they? We don't even know what they are at this point. And where does that fall? Where does reentry? If they're put in there after being incarcerated for 5 years, I would think that's,
I would think would fall under the same, whether,
sober living.
because a lot of folks who are coming out would require sober living or that sort of supportive environment. So and I'm just saying the structure of the of the programs, what they offer is not care, is not skilled care. It is housing that is supposed to be supportive. And I understand that you're saying this is not looking supportive at all.
It's not.
But I think it's also important there, you guys have come and shared that there's another house in another neighborhood that has been here forever with no problems.
Well, he just got inspected today. He's right across the street from us, and that's a group home. And the fire department was there today inspecting, because he follows like the law of group home. So I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'm sorry, which group home? Was it the one on Williams?
Yeah, it's right across the street from you. 2 doors down from the house.
Izzy's house. You work down from Izzy's house.
What's it called? What's it called?
Okay. Because the fire department was going to be inspecting.
Right, I know that. They
So
called
I'm
me.
curious if they did both of the locations today or just the one?
They did the one that they do every year. I mean, but I don't know.
I didn't see him going to the other house.
I mean, I wasn't, we were leaving when they
We're
were,
24/7.
right, they were leaving. So I don't know about that.
I mean, is it,
Someone's given a date to be out. Now, when I spoke with Ralph after one of the meetings here, he said he would be going with the police if they're not out on the 16th, but that never happened because they're still there, coming and going, new men in.
So when I spoke with Ralph yesterday, what he said to me was they went to look at the property. I think Ms. Bowling said this. They went to inspect the property. They were turned away. So, and they are allowed to do that. And so now they were going to have the fire department go. So I
Isn't
thought
that interesting they were turned away?
I mean,
Wouldn't you
not
want?
not really if they're not following.
If you're under occupied, I can see you saying, no.
Yeah.
you're coming in.
Thought that was the
Maybe
thing.
you have no business there. But if you rental, yes, they should.
When they're running something like
Well,
that.
Now, rental,
Legally, they're not.
Yeah, legally the building.
So
they
the
want
building
the owner,
department,
they're
and
the
so
owner.
that's why Ralph reached out to the fire department and he was going to go today. I have not gotten an update on how that went today.
So the
But
vacate order on
again,
the 16th was just,
It wasn't a vacate order. The order was I can't have more than 4 people in there, and you're in violation. And they said, and the Izzy's house sent something to Ralph saying, we are going to be moving out completely. And can we get an extension on when we're going to, said, okay. So that was the January 16th. We said, that's when they said they were going to be out of the building altogether, out of the buildings altogether. But I guess they changed their minds, so.
We
But
stood
I don't know
right
how
out
we
here.
do- I honestly, I'm not sure the basis for a vacate order. A vacate order is, this building is unsafe. And so we're not really there. It's not
Those were your
unsafe.
guys' words, not ours.
So-
Those were in the emails that we got from you guys. We didn't use the word vacate. We got that from,
they just said.
that was passed on
They
to
just were
us.
gonna vacate or something like that.
Yeah.
So we do have a time commitment to this meeting, unfortunately. It sounds like we have 2 actions maybe out of this. Sam, I'm looking at you for the ordinance. Will you
Yeah.
kind of spearhead that?
I think, yeah, I think probably us sitting down and going over what's feasible and legally advisable would be best for pursuing that.
And can look at, okay, we're going to classify this is a different kind of use than just residential,
Yeah.
but that's in the zoning code, and that takes, let's go through planning commission and then that
Right.
council, that takes a while, but we can work on that.
And then the second action, and I hear you all, sometimes these things can be frustrating, especially when you're not seeing things move. So we will clean up the reporting and documentation side and also develop some tools that you can use to report to us to give us a little bit more leverage with the certifying body that's supposed to be certifying these organizations, and we can give them a call. But then also just documenting what's happening. So if you can email me,
Jason,
to
what I
my
can
JD.
do is take all the emails that I have and write up like a date and incident and send that to you. And
Perfect.
we can send that to the board.
Perfect.
And hopefully that's.
can I also suggest, and I know this is obnoxious, but see click fix, because that allows, I can look at see click fix, Sam can look at see click fix. Those are looked at by the police every week, and so that can really let us know. There's been 15 complaints here from 15 different people, right? So that is helpful information because it helps the police, the fire department, whoever know where they need to put the resources. So I always encourage see click fix.
The emails that the neighborhood has been sending since, I don't know, probably September to council, all of those complaints about what this has done, what happens to all of that that's out there?
So
It's
we can-
erased, or somebody's gonna go through there and
I
look at
will-
these emails and start,
Just what Sam said, she's gonna forward me. I'm new. This is my first
Okay.
committee meeting, so she's gonna get me up to speed. I'm gonna take the administrative action. So if you are interested in some tools to help guide some of those complaints, please email
We're
me.
interested in an ordinance.
Absolutely. Sam's
We
taking
can
that.
call the police.
We already talked the action.
We do that.
We're taking that action, so we're gonna hit it from kind of 2 sides. So if you'll email me, I'll give you some guidance on things that you can report and how you can report it. And then I am taking all of the data that you've already provided us and culminating that, and then we'll be working with the oversight organization. So it's jprovins@norwoodohio.gov. Provins is spelled P-R-O-V as in Victor, I-N-S.
I think at the state level too, if you see, they have like a House bill that something's going out.
Yeah, so
And they want to
that's,
try to regulate because they know it's exploding, it's out of control.
that is why I'm asking for the data. So as you see new things, continue to send them my way. And as you can, because then that gives me leverage at the state level and I can advocate for you. But if I just say, hey, I talked to my neighbor last week at the state level, they're going to tell me I'm too busy. But if I send them a document with 30 different instances of like violations, they're going to pay attention. So that's what I'm asking for. I need you to be my eyes and ears so I can go and advocate for you at the state level. And then we're going to work on it.
We've
at
been
the local
doing
level.
that. This is our neighborhood. We know how to call the police. We know how to call,
100%
when
agree.
you call for help. What we need is your guys' help, so we can come up with something, so we know where they're at, all of us. Not just our street, but any street. It does bring a different climate to the neighborhood.
I 100% hear you.
Now,
And
some people don't agree with that, Susan, I know you don't, but it does.
We're going to work it from both
I'm not
areas.
sure where you have that idea
So-
about that perspective.
We're going to work on it with the ordinance for you, and that's the local level.
That's important. I think that's very important.
I 100% agree. So Sam's going to run point on that. So if you have some ideas on what you'd like to see in there, that doesn't mean we can legally do those things, but we can at least consider it. And then,
Safety, like inspections, you have to register, so the city knows, okay, this is for police and fire, you think they want to know that
yes,
when they're going into situations.
100% agree.
We're not saying, oh, obviously, we don't want them, they can't be there, but you can, I mean, I feel like we need to draft something.
I hear you. We will work on it for you. And then on the other
We've been hearing
side,
that since August,
I've been here since January.
okay, but they haven't, we've been here since August.
And to be clear, we have been communicating with multiple departments. We talked about one approach for an ordinance that wasn't going to work. Unfortunately, everything expires at the end of the term, so we have to place this back into committee, get everybody up to date.
And I kept emailing,
spent-
I know this is gonna expire, guys, I know that
Unfortunately,
Elizabeth is gone and
It is, the legal process is not very fast. And I promise you that I am doing everything that I can be doing to be able to get this addressed. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know a ton about housing discrimination. This is my top priority issue. It has a lot of my attention. No one is on a different side of this issue. No one is disinterested in regulating this. No one wants to have any kind of continuation of the issues that we're seeing here. Unfortunately, we are limited, in that we legally are not allowed to be involved in any kind of enforcement that is outside of council's purview. We are legally only allowed to legislate. And that even the legislation and the legal enforcement process from our code enforcement staff have to follow the legal process. As much as I would love to knock on their door and say, you all have to leave, you're bothering everyone on the street, I have no authority to do that. What I would love to know, I would love to know, like succinctly, because we only have half an hour left and we do have a second agenda item. Is there something that you want that is not happening? Code enforcement is happening. I am spending a lot of my free time working on this issue. The legal department has been reviewing materials. Everybody on this committee is doing it. Is there something that we are not doing that you would like to see?
we want to be kept in the loop because we have been pushed and told this department, go to this department, this department. Ralph stood right out here and told us, I said, why the vacate order? What's that about? Because that came from Pete. And he said, I did that because they didn't comply. So they have to be out by the 16th. No, that's really not what happened at all. Like, we are really confused here.
I understand that.
I have all the documentation, everything.
Sure.
They
I
all
can't
don't make
control,
sense.
unfortunately, what information other people are giving. I can only control what I can do. And I understand that I have not been perfect throughout this process. It is also a learning curve. Again, I've never done this before. We are all giving it our absolute best. No one is intentionally leaving anyone out of the loop. There is some information that I don't know what I'm legally allowed to say about code enforcement that's in process. There is just a legal process that has to be followed.
So you guys present it to the law department.
Absolutely.
They look it over.
And then if we come up with an ordinance that works, we don't have to send it to planning commission because it is regarding zoning. Planning commission has to then vote on it. I imagine have a hearing, maybe.
Planning commission would have a hearing.
They have to have a public hearing. They would vote on it. If they approve it, it would get sent back to council where we would have to then vote. I don't have a timeline for what that would look like. It depends on when meetings are scheduled. It depends on availability.
Yeah, we do have to move on.
Yeah,
So
I'm finished.
thank you for taking on the ordinance. So as chair of this committee, I will keep this item open until we close it. So you can email me at any time you'd like for a status update. You'll get a response within 24 hours.
You're the chair of law and ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Danielle.
Can I make one last comment? Oh, yes, okay. Jason and I are new, and I do want to commend you. I think it is a lot to kind of get up to speed on some things if we're not super, familiar with like a complex issue. So I think, and believe me, I've been dealing with an issue in my neighborhood for quite a couple of years. And I think it really is just that things have to go through 1,000 different meetings. And I do want to put faith as a fellow new council member in Jason to really spearhead this and just see what he can do. So, I don't know.
I just wish that, as I kept reaching out, hey guys, it's going to be the end of the year, Alexis is leaving. I know it has to start over then. It started over. I'm surprised that people on the board wouldn't have updated you about what we had going on.
That was an oversight on my part, and I should have done more due diligence. Yeah. I promise it won't happen again.
I don't blame you for that.
Let's move on to the next agenda item, public safety and trust. So this one is specifically about some calls and concerns I received from some residents about federal law enforcement's involvement within our community and what safety looks like for us, and especially with the national landscape. So I'm going to open up the dialogue. Susan, I think you had some items on this.
Yeah, I can share that I have spoken with Chief Sumner over the last several years about this issue. And I think that it's pretty timely. I think probably everyone in this room knows that there was recently a concern about ICE activity on Carthage, and it turned out that it was a federal warrant. And while I know people are trying to get information out, I think it's very important that the information that comes out is accurate. And I've heard a lot of people have questions or concerns about what the Norwood Police Department's policy is. I had hoped that he would be able to come this evening, but he was not. So he shared these are bullet points from our conversation, which is specifically the Norwood Police does not have any agreements or memos of understanding with ICE. For example, when the federal warrant happened on Carthage, Norwood police officers were not informed until after it was already happening. Literally, the Norwood PD was driving down the street and the federal officers waved them down. That's how they found out. That's very normal in most jurisdictions, that federal officers don't tell the local municipalities. They just don't. So that is the case also here in Norwood. It's also important for us to note that Norwood does not enforce any immigration laws, civil or criminal, and there is case law that prevents local and state agencies from doing so. He said, contrary to rumors, we have never made immigration stops. Any assistance request will be guided by public and officer safety and not immigration enforcement. This was the important one for me. We want residents to feel safe reporting crimes and interacting with our officers. We do not ask about immigration status when responding to calls for service or conducting investigations. We encourage everyone, regardless of status, to report crimes without the fear of immigration consequences. We will continue to do what is needed to ensure trust between our agency and our community. And this was essentially the same thing he did share with me a year previous. And since that time, last February, they have never been contacted by ICE for any assistance in the community. So I think that that's just very important that Norwood Police, their efforts are on our safety and a lot of property theft at Brookwood. I don't mean to be minimizing, but that is really, that's where the bulk of their energy is going. And I think that that's really important to sort of underline. I've also reached out, and here today we have Becky Baker from Ignite Peace and Josh Dobson. He is with Vineyard, one of our community faith leaders, who are interested in this issue and can provide some information or resources. But I kind of wanted to start with just what is the city's position, and that's what that is.
It's committee member wise.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want to talk about involved in the discussion of group homes, since I'm not actually on this committee. I want to respect those who've actually, I don't want to ask the same questions that everyone else asks, but I have a lot of concerns about them too. I just wanted to remind everyone of our rights as citizens. We have a First Amendment right to film immigration and customs enforcement in public spaces if you are lawfully present, but you cannot interfere with their operations. You have to maintain a safe distance, avoid blocking agents, and not obstruct investigations. They cannot confiscate your phone or delete your footage unless they have a warrant. They might detain you, but they should not be able to take your phone and delete any footage that you take. I think that although we have not had any action in Norwood that I have heard of, there is a huge environment and there's a lot of fear right now. Like, I've heard from a lot of people who are not even immigrants, but just have friends who are immigrants, even if they're legal citizens. The fear and the anxiety is growing every day. And I can only speak for myself, but I am happy to, if you need help, if you need someone there, if you think something's happening, please call me or email me. If you want my number, I can give it to you. I'm not going to give it to the entire world, but please, I work at Xavier. If I can't be there, my husband can't. I'm happy to do what I can, where I can, within the bounds of the law, as both a city council person and as a private citizen. And I want all citizens of Norwood to know that all residents of Norwood, they matter. Sorry. Yeah.
Anybody visiting tonight want to speak on this topic?
I think just a couple of things that I think are important to point out. So in terms of safety, even the situation on Carthage, because of some of the tactics that we've seen in Minneapolis, people are on edge about any law enforcement. Mm-hmm. So I think most people can agree that the enforcement happening around immigration has gone too far. And so when that happens, now every law enforcement agency is put at risk. And so I think collectively as a community to say, yeah, we don't support this level of enforcement, and we will be documenting it. We will be trying to, support our neighbors in a way that says this level of enforcement is not okay. I've been able to connect with several organizations, several people directly who are, trying to legally go through this process. The federal government is removing their status to where even if they came here legally, that status is being altered in the midst of them being here. So I was in Springfield yesterday. There's thousands of Haitians in this community that have come here legally as asylees. Their country's a wreck. They're at risk of being killed and raped and any number of things. Their status was about to be removed as of today. Thankfully, a federal court halted that. But that would have been thousands of people in Ohio that would have then been eligible for detainment and deportation overnight. So again, there's plenty of people who have come here legally, and even those who haven't, their stories generally are ones of desperation. They're not here to sell drugs. They're not here to rape our women and children. They're here because they're trying to protect their kids and their families. And so to learn their stories, to understand that a very strong majority of immigrants are not violent, they're not criminals, they're here because they're desperate to find a life for their family, to provide for their family. So understanding their stories, understanding why they're here is really important, understanding that basic decency and humanity and habeas corpus are deserved by all, regardless of status. So again, the level of enforcement that has been happening is not legal. It's not legal, it's not right, it's not humane. When parents are taken in front of their kids at the school line, that's not okay. When people's cars are rammed into so they have to get out of their car, not okay. So there's plenty of tactics that are being used that are really unacceptable from any moral evaluation that I can think of. So I hope collectively as a neighborhood, we can be willing to, again, hold enforcement accountable if they were to show up. And I'm grateful that, the Norwood Police Department has expressed that they're not actively participating. There are counties now that are signing what are called 287G agreements, which means they can actively cooperate with immigration enforcement.
Every county surrounding Hamilton County has one of those.
So yeah, Hamilton County is surrounded by counties that are actively doing that. So yeah, thank you for bringing this issue, and I hope, Norwood is its own municipality, so we have the ability internally to set some of our own parameters. In terms of ordinances, in terms of postures, I think making statements and putting targets on our back isn't necessarily helpful, but the actual policies and procedures that departments are following are important. To just put out a statement isn't necessarily helpful because the administration is going after cities that are making statements. But collectively, as we can just show that care and that compassion as our own city without blaring it, I think that can go a long way.
That's all I had in the back.
Oh, yes. I feel like your statement was pretty comprehensive there, but I've seen this footage too coming out of Minneapolis. I've seen, other than the obvious brazen killings, thing that struck me was just, indiscriminate use of tear gas at school pickup of all places. Like, go on, come take care of that. Maybe we'll have to take off work and go to pickup every day to make sure it's safe for my kids. I'm not the only one who's had to stop.
I'd like to just share, I've had the opportunity to talk with some school board members, and they're taking a look also at what the city of Cincinnati is doing, which again, different animals, but as of now, it's my understanding that the school board doesn't have every school doesn't have the exact same policy. So that's something that they're looking at, having one overriding, this is what happens if someone comes to the door and asks for, I believe now it's, I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me. If they come to the door, you can let them in even if they don't have a signed warrant. It's up to your discretion. And so they're looking at changing that language so that it would be the same for all of the buildings. So again, that's a school board thing that they're looking at. Something else that was shared with me, which I thought is really important, is something that parents can do, which is if you have kids in Norwood schools, you can go on to their final forms paperwork online and change so they are not listed in a directory. So that way, if someone comes and gets the directory, sometimes they will, and again, these are worst case scenarios, I'm not anticipating this in Norwood, but they would look at last names as a way to capture that data. So that's an easy thing that you can do to just remove your name and your child's name from the directory. I don't think we even use directories anymore. Everyone's got cell phones. So that is something that is happening in a different space about consistency throughout the city.
Or you could, from a Norwood school, will let them in. I would think a masked man with a gun would be, no, we're not opening the door. I don't care anymore. We have school resource officers there to handle it.
So the issue is with the wording in the policy, not necessarily the practice. So right now the schools are looking at all of their policies on how it reads to ensure that every school is following the same in line. Some of the wording is a little up to whoever is running the school that day, decision-making wise. So they could say no, they could say yes, but I think the school is taking a look at their entry policies to make sure they're all in alignment wording wise. So everybody, it's not up to whoever answers the door that morning. They know this is our school district policy. All of the schools are following the same thing.
and school staff would have to be informed. So some schools are taking a very proactive approach and like are creating policies where they say we will not like ice in and they're alerting parents. Not all schools are following the same like protocols. Like, I don't know what Norwood schools are doing. I'm Becky, I'm a Norwood resident and I also work at Ignite Peace. We're also offering like training, like in no ice. There's also like family preparedness packets you can use at the schools. We have like training in a variety of things to like help prepare people as ICE is like coming to Ohio. They they're going to be here this month. So so like just as like resources, we are here to try to help community members figure out how we can like come together and kind of move through some of that and do some of those trainings and provide resources to other places.
How do we connect with you?
I have business cards. You can email me, pretty much. That is probably the easiest way to connect with us. I can have them here.
Becky Baker with Ignite Peace.
Yes.
For those at home.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that, isn't it wonderful that people want to come to Norwood and live, that people want to come here, and that one of our greatest hallmarks is that we take care of each other. And that we rally around kids and we take care of each other. And so what are those traits about us, what are those qualities, what are those strengths about us that keep us connected and keep us caring for each other in hard times and house fires and somebody gets sick? Those are the same skills and traits and qualities that we really need to rally around for people who are really at risk right now. And as most of you know, I have real concern about kids, and that realistically, if we're feeling this stress, imagine what our kids are doing. Imagine how our kids are showing up at school every day and not learning.
Or not showing up.
Or not, yeah, exactly, or not showing up. And they don't know if they go home, their families are going to be there. They don't know any of those things. Several years ago, we were given this great national award for being one of 100 best communities for young people in all of America because of the way we treated kids and the way that we rallied around kids. And I just think that anything that we can do to alleviate what's happening in the lives of kids right now, and whether that's working cooperatively with schools and partnership and saying that public places are off limits. We're not going to let people come into schools or public buildings or medical facilities or places that, we're not going to let our municipal lots be staging areas for ICE. Anything that we can do like that, none of our resources will be used to strike fear and terror in the hearts of our citizens. And just to keep thinking about that, we've all been learning a lot about how trauma affects kids and adults, and that an adverse childhood experience is not just somebody being physically abused by somebody in your home. It can be system abuse. It can be these massive things that are happening. And what we're doing is the seeds that we're planting now will come to fruition in 10 or 15 years. And we will have a whole host of young people, whether they're left here because their parents were sent back, or that will not have the basic skills that we want people to have around trust and compassion and care and taking care of each other. So not only are we thinking about our businesses that aren't going to have employees and are having to take off time from work to take care of our kids, but we're raising kids that we want to have be fruitful parts of our communities, and the only way we do that is by protecting them as a community.
Thank you. That was really, I appreciate that.
To build off of that, one thing I was just going to say is that my daughter at her school has lost a friend to ICE just in the last couple of weeks. And it's been a topic of conversation, of course, with my wife and I, but then my daughter has joined the conversation trying to understand what's going on. I can't offer anything else to the whole context here, but I do want to just say that if you see any issues in our community, I would be happy to be a contact person if you want to email me to let me know what's going on, especially if you are a person that's very connected to our immigrant community in Norwood. Please reach out to me to let me know how our residents are feeling if they don't feel comfortable, coming forward themselves, so that we can assure that our resources here in Norwood are spent on protecting Norwood citizens. It is not your tax dollars in Norwood that go to enforce immigration policy. They go to make sure that we are publicly safe. And so I think that is something as Norwood City Council, that it is our job to hold our tax dollars accountable to protecting Norwood residents. So. Emily.
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about, our role as city council, what we can actually do to do this. And I think you're right, Mr. Stockson, like a statement, a resolution. I mean, Cincinnati passed a resolution basically saying, hey, could you follow the laws, please? And it always seems like, it seems so almost pointless, but I mean, and especially with smaller cities like Norwood, if you speak out, you get a target on your back too. And we're reliant on outside funding, state, federal, county money to do a lot of stuff in Norwood. So I think what we can do as city council is just talk to the administration and say we can't have them using our municipal lots, no city resources. I have that policy with the police, right? Where they're not. That's their policy. Their policy.
We don't have it.
And just make sure that they're following that policy. But I've been trying to look for ways that local governments, anything that we can do to limit or prevent this kind of indiscriminate immigration enforcement from ravaging our community. Because like you said, I am happy a U.S. Marshal comes here, gets a guy who is a violent criminal, has a warrant out for his arrest. Awesome. Great. Get that guy out of the community. But the fact that everything is just so, you see U.S. Marshal, you don't know what is going on. It was ICE, it's CBP, Border Patrol. It's a lot of issues, and it sucks for actual people who are actually enforcing the law and making our community safer. So again, I was about to call on you, but I am not the chair, so I apologize, Mr. Providence.
Okay, so just one quick point of action, if people want to take action, there is a bill at the Ohio State House right now that would require local law enforcement to participate. And if you don't, they will cut off funding. That is an actual bill at the Ohio State level. So if you're a person who doesn't mind calling their state reps or senators, that's something that makes this no longer a hypothetical, but the state is going to require. So happy to share the number of the bill and such if anyone's interested.
Yes, please.
So we are out of time.
Can I just,
Absolutely.
just should be really quick. So I know there's people that are upset, people from Norwood residents that may very well go down and protest, they may march, they may film things that they see going on, and I just want all of the people in Norwood that are doing that kind of thing to be careful. You can march down the sidewalk, you can wave a sign, you can film a police officer, a federal marshal, ICE, you can film them. But I just want to advise you, you can't obstruct the sidewalk, you can't obstruct the streets, you cannot interfere with what the officer is doing. And this is an issue that happens with police officers everywhere, where I'm trying to interview this, I'm trying to talk to this witness, and you screaming at me is not helping. That can be interfering. You can't obstruct them, you can't grab people. If you want to film, just make sure you're far enough back. And these are things, let them do their jobs, whether it's ICE, whether it's the Norwood Police Department, whether it's Stadies, whatever it is. Just let them do their job. You can film them to make sure they're on it. And I will also make this point that, and I was mentioning this to Susan, I look at this kind of thing the same way I do about the crosswalk at the library over there. You're allowed, there's a crosswalk. I can step out, I have the right to step out in the middle of the street whenever I want, but I'm gonna look and see if there's a car coming. And this is kind of the same thing, especially when we're talking about about ICE and Border Patrol. They do not have the same training or experience dealing with just regular people on the street that might be filming them or might be yelling at them. The Norwood Police Department has had body cams for years, so they know. I mean, they do the right thing. I've watched, I don't know how much body cam footage, and 99 times out of 100, I'm proud with the way they deal with it. But it doesn't, my impression is anyway, ICE and Border Patrol are not real happy about being filmed, and they're much more likely to do things they maybe shouldn't do, to push that line farther. So anybody that's out there filming or protesting, I just want you to be safe. Take that step back. You can keep the camera up, keep the phone up, but just take that step back and make sure that that they don't feel threatened while they're doing it. Because I don't want somebody to be grabbed. I don't want somebody, I mean, the best case scenario is you're taken into custody, and if you get the wrong last name, you may end up in a facility in Texas, and it may take a very long time before anything happens, and nobody wants that to happen. So keep them honest, film them, make your voice be heard, but just be careful, and remember that there are limits on what you can do too. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. That's a good sum up, and that was the topic for tonight, of safety. I'm going to close it down to just committee members, so I don't think we're in a place where we can really take an action yet unless someone has something, but I would like to keep the agenda item open until we feel a little bit more resolved, and maybe in the meantime do some research of actions we can take as a committee. The other item, are we wanting to send anything up to council as a report? We'll of course have minutes, but if there's anything extra that we wanted to send, I don't think we're at a place for that either, but I wanted to at least give someone an opportunity.
Need to report out anything on housing as of yet, so.
Okay. All right. Well, we will adjourn. Thank you all. Thank you for your voices and input. We can't do this job without.